Festival Committee, he's looking after the volunteers. He's also part of our Conference Committee. He's looking after the volunteers there too. And I've had a chance to work with Ron Carter on several different issues or items. So welcome to the stage, Ron. From Philly.
And Texas is a difference. It's a change. And then he mentions about young and upcoming. Tell us. Well, I'm going to try to remember that tomorrow morning when I'm getting out of the bed and my bones are cracking and talking to me at age 70. From folklore, African folklore, African American folklore, contemporary, personal stories. Most of my stories are based on my life experiences. And I want to share with you an original story. There is this city called Booby Wooby. I know, such a silly name for a city. But living in this city are people from all walks of life. It's a very beautiful village, more to say. And also living in that village is a friend of mine by the name of Dewey. Now, Dewey is a child, a little boy, who always walked around with a smile on his face from one end of the back of his head all the way around to the other end, back of his head. And all the other children of the village, well, they walked around happy too, smiling and doing what children do. Well, one day, Dewey's smile turned upside down into a frown. He walked around, him and all of the other children of the village, they walked around with no smiles on their face, but frowns, and feeling sad. Well, the adults of the village, they kind of noticed this. And Dewey's father, being the chieftain of the village, he went to his wife, and he said, "Have you noticed what's going on?" "Yes, my dear, I have noticed what's going on. All the children are walking around sad. They're not themselves." Well, I got to do something. So he summoned Dewey to his presence, and he said to him, "Dewey, my son, why are you so sad?" Dewey just simply looked up at his father, and he shrugged his shoulders, and he said, "I don't know." And his mother asked him, "My son, why are you so sad?" And the very same thing that he did and said to his father, he also did it to his mother. And he just shrugged his shoulders and looked up at his mother and said, "I do not know." Now, all the parents around in the village were asking their children the very same thing. And like Dewey, they had no answer for their parents. But Dewey's siblings, being older, and you know children, when they're together, especially when they're siblings, they will communicate things that they will not communicate with older folks. And they asked Dewey, "Why are you so sad, my brother?" "Yes, my little brother, why are you so sad?" And he said to them, as he sat down and crossed his legs and relaxed, "You know, my dear brothers and sisters, I and all of the other children of the village, we are sad because we are not allowed to do the things that you do. We are not allowed to do the same things that older children are able to do or allowed to do. We are just simply ignored It is as if we do not exist. The old adage, children are to be seen and not heard. Now, Dewey's father and mother, they overheard this conversation. And a lot of the other children in the village were talking to their older siblings, and they expressed the same thing that Dewey did. So Dewey's father, well, he, being the big honcho of the village, said, well, now that we know, my dear, what's going on, they had a town meeting with all the other parents. We must do something to bring these children back to life, to give them their spirit, to give them their pride, for them to feel good about themselves. So they called for a gathering of all the village people. And Dewey's father, as I said, being the big honcho in the village, he made a proclamation. From this day on, children will always be allowed, the smaller children shall always be allowed to do some of the very same things that the older children are allowed to do, but within reason. And Dewey began to smile. And all the children of the village, they began to smile. And man, Dewey's smile came back from the tip of his nose going south, the tip of his nose going north, all the way around to the back of his head. He smiled and he laughed. Ooh, yes. All the children began to run, laugh, and play like children do. They felt good. They were allowed to do a lot of the very same things that the older children were allowed to do. They were even given some responsibility. And they felt like they were a part of the human race. Now, Dewey's father said, I am not finished. We shall have a festival, a sense of festivities are about to go down. And he said, I have something else for the children, not just for the children, but for the entire village. And he brought forth this old and wise, jolly griot, teller of tales, the village historian. And that the folks parted and the storyteller came forth. And he had a drum strapped to his back and a stool in his hand. And he sat the stool down and he sat on the stool and he placed the drum between his legs and he began to play rhythms. Ah, those rhythms were so melodic. And his voice began to sing. His voice, the melody, so melodic. And the drum and the voice were rhythmic. And he began to play. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. Man, he played that drum like there was no tomorrow. He was kicking off all kinds of rhythms, from Roombas to South American rhythms, even American rhythms. And the folks, they began to rejoice and dance and celebrate. And the children, they praised with victory that they have been accepted. They were no longer to be ignored. They were always to be accepted into society and being recognized. Yes, in the land of Booby Whoopie.